And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird right here from Awesemo.com. Dan Strafford, Dave Lockern along with you on this Friday morning, getting you ready for a 9-game National Basketball Association slate. Some big tournaments on all the sites. As always on a Friday here, we are trending towards divisional playoff games in the NFL. You have a ton of content over at Awesemo.com for that. You have a ton of content each and every day as well. And a little bit of a change here. So the promo code EARLYBIRD, one word, gets you 50% off your first month at Awesemo.com, whether paying for the annual or paying for a monthly. It gets you 50% off. We're not offering the 1 week free anymore. Appreciate everyone who signed up via that, but now you have an opportunity to save a little bit more cash, get 50% off that first month, and check out Awesemo via that promo code. And obviously, if you're a monthly, you can choose to cancel after that month. We hope you don't. We think you'll like the product we have over here, and check out the ownership percentages, Alex's grades. Alex is, of course, Awesemo. So check out his grades. You check out Dave's writing. You check out Adam's writing. You got the NHL guys, the PGA guys. You get the rankings and the projections from Josh. I should say cheat sheet and rankings and projections from Josh. And you get the lineup builder, which uses Alex's grades to give you a GPA and understand exactly what lineup you're building there. So tons of content, tons of available mediums there to get new lineups in multiple different sports. With all that said, as always, I'd like to check in with Dave. Dave, how the hell are you doing? What's new in your world?
Not that much, man. Things are going well.
Sweet. That's a really low-key response. Have you been hanging out with Adam? Like,
no, it was intentional.
Is your best Adam Scherer impersonation?
Just curious to see how you'd respond when I don't go on for a minute. I make your life easy sometimes.
Or hard, depending on how you look at it.
That's a good
for those
point.
of you,
when you're trying to go to sleep.
Exactly right. That's a lie. My 18-month-old doesn't sleep at all, so we party all night here.
I don't believe that.
Oh, she is up at 2 and 4. It's awesome.
I just don't believe she's partying.
Oh, she's partying. You should hear her vocal cords. They're amazing.
Fair enough.
Of course she does. She's my kid.
Okay.
The
IPAs, I'm assuming.
Oh no. We're a lager household here.
That's right. I will never drink a Miller Lite again. By the way, you don't know why?
Chicago?
Do you want to know why?
No, I do, but I was. Why? Tell me.
What
was you made reference to Miller Lite. I thought I had some sort of problem we had a problem in Chicago when we were out there for FanBites, but no. Why Miller Lite?
Now they're offering free beer if the Saints win. And it's like, hey, assholes, you did that with us first.
Yes.
We don't play this wishy-washy nonsense. You're with us or you're not. And guess what? We're not with you.
Well, you need.
I'll take my light beer drinking elsewhere.
So you need Rolling Rock. That's who's on the old cast lines of old Latrobe there. Though it's now brewed in Newark, but that's
or Yuengling. I mean, the oldest brewery in the country is in Pennsylvania. Pottsville, Pottstown. Always mix it up. One or the other.
It's Pottsville. You're right. No, you got that one. Yuengling's good. My neighbor across the street is a big Yuengling fan, though we're in Sam Adams country here. I do a lot of microbrew lagers up this way. I think I've mentioned it here on the podcast. Castle Island is one. Maritime Lager is another. When push comes to shove, I'll drink a Bud Light or a Miller Lite if I need to, but not by design, not by choice at this point in my life. When I was like 22, sure. I did not like that. That's a different story altogether. But nonetheless.
Like me a good Corona, man.
Corona. Have you ever had Modelo Especial? Okay, Modelo Sol.
I don't know.
Sol's should be available in your area because it's available in Central and South Jersey, so it should be around your area. It's a little bit heavier. It's kind of like a Budweiser or Mexican beer. It's a little heavier, but it's good. There's a restaurant in Central Jersey, which is actually up here too, called Jose Tejas, which if you ever want to take a drive, Dave, Tex-Mex, best restaurant in the world. It's in Woodbridge, New Jersey, and they have not sponsored this podcast. But
I'm not big on Mexican beer or Mexican food.
It's Tex-Mex, so you get like some pepper chicken. I get lemon pepper chicken there. It's really good. So
that sounds pretty good.
If you ever want to take a ride up Route 1, there from Philly up through to Woodbridge, New Jersey. That a high recommendation to you. But anyway,
I'll get on that.
Yeah, do it right now. Just take off right now. We have a 9-game NBA slate. We will go position by position as we always do here. As a reminder, Dave has your deep dive, which is the write-up over there at Osmo.com. He'll go position by position. He will also make sure to note all of the injuries. The entire Utah Jazz backcourt is out, other than Donovan Mitchell, so keep that in mind. I do not believe they have an active point guard. I don't know who is on their roster right now. I don't know if they've called anyone up from the G League. It's a bad scene. But anyway, he'll note that all at the top. He'll give you all the scenarios. And then, of course, the deeper dive, Dave and Adam, is at 5 p.m. That is free over on YouTube. You get to ask questions if you're a member over in Slack chat. They post some of their plays specifically in Slack chat as well. That doesn't go out on the free YouTube stream. And, of course, you get access to Adam and Dave for questions throughout if you're in Slack, which is for subscribers only. So we're going to dive in here, Dave, and sort of the story we've been discussing a lot here has been James Harden's price tag. We were coming off 2 good but not high-end or ceiling games from Harden. And I say
Anthony Davis outproduced him in both, actually.
Yeah, exactly right. And so you have people who will say, well, you shouldn't have, results-oriented folks, you shouldn't have played Harden. He was outperformed by someone else on the slate. When one of 300 to 400 players outperform your player, I'm okay still playing him. But we are at a price point now on DK where he's at 12.5. And we've talked about the 13K threshold. It's a 9-game slate. He has a matchup with Cleveland, which obviously has some upside here. Not the best defensive team in the league. They play at a higher pace. I don't know their three-point percentage allowed. I don't know their three-pointer attempts allowed as of yet. Haven't looked it up. But
doesn't even matter with them.
I think we're at a point of, are you still in? Is this where Harden finally becomes somebody that you will fade or stay away from, or is Harden still numero uno on the top of the potential plays list here?
So I think it's important to point out that when I say I'm still in, it doesn't mean that I'm playing Harden in every lineup, right? I don't want to give that misconception because that's not the case. I actually had several lineups without him the other day. It's not unreasonable to not have the highest priced guy in all of your lineups, right? I mean, of course. But we're talking about, James Harden, a decent game last. He still had 70 fantasy points.
Right.
Like, he had another 40-point game. He's averaging over 40 points since Chris Paul went down. 70 fantasy points. Like, let's pump the brakes for a second and just realize, like, this game he still took 30 shots. He still took 16 threes. He still had 42 points and 71 fantasy points in 41 minutes against the Milwaukee team that, once again, many said, hey, that matchup, Giannis, don't matter. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't at this rate. I'm still in. And, Davis isn't on this one. So you've got Giannis, but I still don't. It's what, a $1,200 discount on DraftKings? It's nice. Washington defensively is very bad, but so is Cleveland.
Yep.
If you're not in the business of predicting blowouts, which I'm not, and we've seen very recently why it's not the greatest idea to do so, right? Like Toronto, Atlanta. I could just give you a list of games, and I give you a list of games that had a very tight spread that resulted in ugly blowouts. It goes both ways. But yeah, the Cavaliers are allowing the 4th highest 3-point percentage. So you have that. Now, in terms of 3-point attempts per game, they're at 13th. But remember, they also play at a pretty slow pace. What's pretty amazing, though, is they're allowing the 7th most points in the league. The 7th most points in the league, despite playing at one of the slowest paces. So the 7th most points and the 2nd slowest pace. You do the math. That's how bad they've been defensively.
You don't even need math at that point, I hope. I hope that's...
You really don't. Check this out, though. Right? The Knicks are 29th in defensive rating, 113 points per 100 possessions allowed. That's how you get defensive rating. 113 points per 100 possessions, 29th place. Cleveland is 30th, 117 points per 100 possessions. They are 4 points worse per 100 than the next worst team. That's how bad they've been.
That's pretty bad.
Yep. Look, if you just look at it through all the rankings, right, from 1 all the way up, it's 104s, then 105s, then 106s, 107s, 109s, 108s, a bunch of 109s, bunch of 110s, bunch of 111s, bunch of 112s, a 113, and then a 117. They're that much worse than everybody defensively. It's dreadful.
It's a not a good situation there defensively, but overall, we will take into consideration the rest of the roster construction. And to Dave's point, and not to derail point guard right away, but when we talk about plays and we talk about guys here, it's with the sense of one lineup construction, and where these players come to be. I think what happens a lot with DFS players when they hear analysis and touts or analysts or whatever words you want to use, it's not 100%. It's not a black or white statement. Now, there are tournament plays, there are cash game plays, but even further, there's just leverage, and there's ways to use ownership and use things that change the way you may construct a lineup. So even though Harden is 100% in play here, it doesn't mean he's going to be in 100% of lineups. It's not saying lock him in and make
That's
him
the simplest way to put it, right?
Your number one play. It's that he should be viable. He is viable, and he should be part of your research and your lineup construction process. He may not make every lineup you make. He may not make the one lineup you make. If you decide a balanced lineup here is the best way to get the maximized high end, highest upside, then that's what you do. And you are then, yes, fading James Harden, but you're not fading him simply because of price point and matchup. You're fading him because he doesn't fit in your lineup construction.
Right. And keep in mind too, like, it's very possible that at 12-5, not having Harden can help you.
Right.
But remember, there's also spots where you could say, at this price point, I don't see any way that having him could help me. I'm not talking about Harden. I'm talking about other players. Say Montrezl Harrell gets up to 8K or wherever he got earlier this season, like 78K on DraftKings. It's very tough to envision any way where that is actually, could actually play in your favor if you roster him. Well, with Harden at 12-5, it's still very, very possible, right? He could drop 80 in the blink of an eye. Not just that, you're locking in 60 plus with 80 plus upside, and it's hard to say that. Would you be happy with 60? Of course not. But the floor that he has is just so much higher.
May have lost Dave there momentarily. I'm sure he will come back and continue discussing James Harden. We will move on in the point guard ranks here and continue the discussion as we hit on all the top plays across each position to what Dave is saying. Remember, price point matters, and price point is going to continue to be a situation where as you develop this, and Dave's back now, as you talk through, and
off, man, it switched. Once in a while, my internet switches to the other Wi-Fi. I don't know why it does it. It's nonsense, and then it just boots me. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was almost completing what you were saying of just price point. When you hit a certain price point on certain players, you have to know their ceiling can't be reached. Like the ceiling you need can't be reached. Harrell, as the example at 8K, just becomes a non-factor. Whereas Harden still at 12-5 has the upside to still make it work. I say this and I say it again, and we'll go on with point guard from here. It's all about your entire roster. James Harden isn't your entire roster. So how the rest of the pieces fit, is there value? Is there value you're comfortable with? Are there mid-tier guys that you're comfortable with that you think will have highest upside on a slate like this? With that said, you got Steph Curry, Ben Simmons, Walker, Oladipo. Donovan Mitchell here at 7,900 should get every minute possible in the backcourt, coming off a 51.5 DraftKings point outing. He had 37 minutes, which is in line with his typical output here for Utah, a matchup with the Lakers. And so a plus matchup. I know Lonzo Ball has been playing fairly good defense, but a pretty good matchup there. Then you get to Teague. Derrick Rose is now questionable after being said that he would play. You don't like seeing a downgrade. So you do like the upside for Teague here, potentially to get more minutes. But his price is at 6,700. What do you got? The rest of the point guard, who are some of the names that you think you'll be writing up, or you think at least at this early juncture are somewhat intriguing?
Is there anything worse than the unrelenting itch on the bottom of your foot?
No. No, there's not.
You understand what I'm talking about, right? They never go away.
No.
I bet people are like, oh, finally they're talking basketball. All right, let's talk point guard. No, it's
You're like
just driving
rubbing
me
your foot
nuts.
against the floor, hoping
Yeah,
that,
oh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the side of my desk, it drives you nuts, and it's a spot where you can't really get it easy, and it's terrible. Worse is when it like happens in bed and you're trying not to wake her up, but you're like, all right, I got it. I just got to go in for the kill here, and you just
Because you bend your knee then and your knee in the back, and it's a
it,
bad scene. Yeah.
it's not good. But you know what? Uh, Sometimes there are casualties, and you just have to get it done because you can't be miserable like that. All right, let's talk about it. You know, it was really disappointing last time out in a really good matchup, pace up spot, good overall matchup was Kemba, man. He got blown out. Him and his Hornets got blown out against the Clippers. He only played 31 minutes, shot 6 for 18. Talk about a low floor. Kemba early in the season was just smashing, but then we're beginning to see the same Kemba that we've become very familiar with over the years, right? Where he kind of just disappears for stretches. But James Harden, we won't even get into that more. I think everybody knows, where we stand on that. With Lillard and Walker, they're both in that 8K range. So is Oladipo. I'll talk about him here at the point. And so is Ben Simmons. It's tough with all of them. I would actually lean Simmons here over all of those guys. And here's the reason. First of all, Simmons turned the ball over 7 times last game. That's bad, but it's worse when you consider all 7 of them were in the first half. All right. But again, he still had, and this was in 30, he still had 15, 10, and 8. He was still 2 assists shy of a triple-double. He still took another 15 shots. The turnovers were brutal, but I actually do not mind Ben Simmons here at all. Atlanta's defensively is terrible. And who's going to stop him? You think about that. Who's going to stop? Who's going to stop him? I'm not really sure who that's going to be. And I'm sure they can try something, but whether it's you're not going to stick Trae Young on him, Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Bembry. I don't see it happening. It's actually a really good spot for Ben Simmons to bounce back after that 7 turnover game in which they got torched by Washington after smoking them the day before. Philly's bench depth is really, really bad, and it's going to create some serious problems. But anyway, I do like Simmons here. It's a great spot. And keep this in mind, right? In one other game against Atlanta this year, he played 26 minutes. He had 21, 12, and 9, 52 fantasy points. The reason this is important is because Lloyd Pierce was doubling, even tripling Joel Embiid down low every single time. It didn't work. They kept it competitive. Actually, it was about tied at halftime, I remember. And then Philly pulled away with it in the third. They're a much better team. But that if that is a strategy that Pierce uses this time, now Butler wasn't on the team before, but my guess is they're still going to do everything they can to take Embiid out of the game. Simmons has been more aggressive lately, so I think that really should benefit him here. And my guess is he's not going to be that popular because nobody wants to pay this much for him. Also, Donovan Mitchell, you mentioned him. Listen, the Lakers have, I think I talked about this last time on the show, but since LeBron James has been out, his last game was Christmas, right? So since LeBron has been out, the Lakers have been a real Jekyll and Hyde team when it comes to offensive and defensive play. Defensive rating, the Lakers rank 4th in the entire league, behind only San Antonio, Portland, and OKC. Offensive rating, they rank 28th. So they got a little better last game thanks to Kyle Kuzma shooting the lights out. But they're better than only the Grizzlies and the Knicks over that span. Right. Offensively, they've really struggled. But, hey, they lead the league in pace along with – well, OKC has actually jumped them. They're second in pace. So while I don't like the actual matchup, I love the pace, number one, for Donnie Mitchell. Significant a significant increase here for the Jazz. You're looking at like 6 possessions per 48. But also, the shot volume is going to be crazy, and he's going to have to facilitate. I mean, think about this. The only reason I had any interest in Raul Neto last time wasn't because he's good, because he's not, but because of the minutes. He played 31 minutes, and I don't know if he left actually early in that game because of the strain, because I know he's in there. I think he may have, but he played 31 minutes, and now you have no one, and he just soaked up some serious minutes there. You pointed this out at the top of the show. Like, no Rubio, no Raul Neto, no Dante Exum, and no Grayson Allen. You can't even run him there. Right. So it looks like you're going to get Mitchell Long in there. I think
Who?
I think it's Nas Mitru Long. I think that's his first name. It's too short, or his name's too long to read it. Let me see if I'm right. Yep, Nas
Like,
Naz
like
Mitru Long.
the like hip hop artist with Puff Daddy? Nas? Like what are we what are we
Well,
doing here? What no, really,
yeah,
what's happening? Who are you talking about? This can't be a real person.
yes and no. The hip hop rapper spelled it Nas. This is Naz.
Okay.
So yes and no. Pretty much no. He Here's the thing though. He played 1 minute last game. He's played 14 minutes on the entire season. So I don't know if they're going to bring someone up from G League. Maybe Quinn Snyder already did. But what I'd probably expect to see is Donovan Mitchell start at the point.
Yep.
And then you might bring Kyle Korver up to start, or probably Royce O'Neal. And you could maybe stick him at the 3, or put Ingles, keep Ingles at the 3, move Ingles to the 2. That's what I would expect to see. So with Mitchell moving to point,
Could you
go ahead.
Could you see? I mean, I don't know if this lineup works, but could you see Mitchell, Ingles, Crowder, Favors, Gobert? That lineup doesn't work, does it? Because you have Favors and Crowder and Gobert just in the lane. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's tough against.
That's a slow lineup too.
Right. Exactly.
That's
exactly against this Lakers team. Yeah. And if you put Korver in the starting lineup, you have pretty much nothing off the bench in terms of shooting. So, even spot up shooting like Korver does. So my guess would be that you move Mitchell to the 1 and O'Neal into the starting lineup, but we'll see. That's yet to be seen. That would be my guess though, for sure. And I think Mitchell has got to be in play here. He's still sub 8K on DraftKings. He's going to get up a lot of shots here. There's just no way he doesn't. 8,100 on FanDuel. I'm also perfectly fine with that. Look, Mitchell's not a guy we've rostered very often this year because as a facilitator, he doesn't do much. He's really a shoot-first guard that relies more so on scoring than anything else, and that makes things difficult. But in a spot like this, I think you pretty much just have to bite the bullet and say, look, there's nobody else. There's no one else. We'll talk about Joe Ingles, but I think assist opportunities should increase for him as well. We do have some injuries to look at. I don't really know what we're going to get here. We've gotten news on a couple ones, but they're unimportant, like DiVincenzo, DJ Wilson, Ntilikina. But in terms of questionable players, like Lillard's questionable.
The sprained elbow, yeah.
Right. If he's out, you know exactly what we're doing here. We're going to CJ McCollum, number 1, and then you'll probably see a good amount of Seth Curry. Like Seth Curry will probably become a top value play here. He's actually, if you look at Seth Curry's minutes, he's seeing 22 plus minutes now in 3 straight and 4 of his last 5. So I would expect him to get a considerable run in the starting lineup. It's not going to be guys like Wade Baldwin or Anthony Simmons or anybody like that. It would be Curry. So Curry and McCollum would both be very good plays. McCollum at 6,300 would be an absolute lock. I don't even care about him being chalk there because you're just going to see such an uptick in volume. And keep in mind that this year, last year, Terry Stotts and the year before was very good about staggering their minutes.
Right.
Last I looked, this was about 2 weeks ago. Last year, McCollum played about almost a third of his minutes staggered with Lillard off the court. This year, it was at 5% with Lillard off the court, which is a huge, dramatic change. And it definitely doesn't help somebody like him who's always going to play second fiddle with Lillard out there. That would make a huge, huge difference. And then just to round it out here, I'm jumping around a bit, but hopefully you're all right with that. The MPE makes it tough. Trae Young is a sketchy play for sure, but go back to the ball handling, shoot first guards. We saw Bradley Beal last time out when he actually got sufficient run, dropped 34 points on 13 for 21 shooting. Just a really efficient game there. 49 fantasy points just because the peripherals weren't there. But Trae Young is discounted. I don't think he's a terrible play. Tournaments only, especially given the minutes are kind of all over the place at times. And then the last one I wanted to throw out here is and by the way, I think McCollum's fine even if Lillard plays because he is really cheap. It's you could do a whole lot worse than that. The last one, and we can save the rest for the article, is if you look at last game, Jeremy Lin played 28 minutes. And I told Adam on the deeper dive, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if Lloyd Pierce moves Bembry to the bench and because Herter's back and kept Lynn in there and started him at the 2 guard because of how well he played against Toronto. And I mean, he really should be getting more minutes on the year. Well, that didn't happen. Herter was back in the lineup. It was the same as we've seen when they're healthy. Well, when this group is healthy. But Lynn played 28 minutes. And I don't know how much of that was related to the game before or related to how that game was moving. But, hey, he only shot 5 for 18 and still played 28 minutes, had 31 fantasy points. If Lynn's going to continue to see around 28, 27 minutes, given that he's, a 1+ fantasy point per minute guy, I think it's like 1.11, that would be a really solid play. And you're getting him in a matchup, again, where you can do legitimate damage. So just keep that in mind. I think he's a sneaky play if you want to take that risk.
All right, let's touch on shooting guard. Obviously, we touched on Harden already here at the top. We didn't talk much about Steph Curry at point guard. Don't know if you have a take here on him. Against Chicago, 9,900, just below the 10K price point. Luka Doncic is at 8,400. You were talking injuries. I know Dennis Smith Jr. is out on Friday. I don't know how much DSJ is influencing Doncic's usage or his upside, but simply just more minutes and more shots to go around here as we go through. You get Oladipo. Jimmy Butler is eligible here at 7,600. Wiggins is at 6,800 if Rose is out again. An absolutely dominant performance last time out by Wiggins with 64.5 DraftKings points, 40 points in the 119.
First 40-point game of his entire career.
That's pretty crazy. And had a very colorful post-game discussion that I'm sure he wishes he had back.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Just be smart about the words you use. So shooting guard plays a lot off point guard, right? So we have the ability to play a lot of point guards here at shooting guard. You can get the upside of the assists and the steals that you get from the point guard position over on DraftKings. What do you got? Are there names that you feel are more comfortable to slot in here at shooting guard, or guys who are shooting guard only eligible like a Bradley Beal or Klay Thompson? What are some of your favorites here?
And by the way, first 40-point game of the season. He's actually done it, I think, like 7 times or something. I got mixed up there. I think he's done it 7 times. So my apologies. 40, 40, 41, 40, 41, 41, 47. And I think that 47 came against Cleveland. No, 41. Not that it matters. But shooting guard's got some good options. A bunch of guys that, we already talked about. But looking at what's his name? Where's he at? Where you at, son? Eric Bledsoe.
Okay.
Eric Bledsoe. There's so many names.
I know, but it was one of those moments where I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I guess I didn't either. The minutes concern me. I mean, I'd really like to see a little bit more consistency here. It sucks because his price is getting down there to a point where you say, hey, this could be a really great play against Washington, against this backcourt. But right now, you pretty much have to reserve him for tournaments. I don't see any way you don't. Bradley Beal's interesting too. How much will I get being that Donovan Mitchell and even Ben Simmons and a bunch of other guards at the point and shooting guard are in equally favorable spots at better or similar price points. It's yet to be unsaid how much Beal will have, especially since the peripherals have been lacking. I mean, he really needs to get uber high point totals here, and at times we've seen that really lack in terms of the auxiliary stats. But Milwaukee, I talked about this with Harden's matchup. I mean, they cough up the most 3-point attempts in the league, and they're allowing a top 10 3-point percentage. But the biggest thing here is, you look at Milwaukee and say, oh, hey, good defense. You want to stay away from that. Well, they might be a good defense, but this team also plays at a very elevated pace. They are a top 6 pace team in the league this year, actually tied with the Pelicans for 5th. So I definitely see this being a spot where Bradley Beal can put up big numbers. Of course, this game could devolve into a blowout, but I'm not too worried about it. 6.5-point spread, 231 total is the second highest on the slate outside of Philly, Atlanta. There's actually a decent amount to like here on both sides of this game, which is why I mentioned Bledsoe on one, Beal on the other. And then it would only be right to talk about Chris Middleton as well. The shooting has been up and down, mostly down. He had been shooting well up until his last few games, but I think going back to the well here makes sense. And if I'm going to pay for one of these guards not named Giannis, or one of the Bucks not named Giannis, it would be Middleton. Pay a little bit more than Bledsoe, but know that you're going to get 35 minutes in a competitive one, and he still has upside to do a whole lot. it's not a bad position, man. Joe Ingles, I'll mention him at shooting guard. Ingles is going to see, ample opportunity to produce here. 7 assists and 6 assists, so 13 total assists in the 2 game that Rubio has missed, and now Raul Neto's out of the rotation as well. And really, Mitchell might be able to, pick up some of the slack, but he's not going to be great in terms of really moving the ball around. So I think Ingles will definitely shoulder a decent amount of that responsibility.
What about Brogdon here? That's the name who popped off the page, actually, for me, beyond Bledsoe and Middleton at 5,700, been playing 30-plus minutes. I know maybe doesn't have the explosive upside of a Bledsoe, but pretty consistently in the mid-30s. Is he a cash game / solid floor play here in this same matchup?
Yeah, no question. If you're looking for a cash play, it would be Brogdon. I like Bledsoe over Brogdon in tournaments. I just think, as you point out, in terms of a ceiling, Bledsoe does definitely have a higher ceiling. But Brogdon's consistency has been pretty encouraging. Of course, whenever it feels like that, whenever it looks like that, they come out with the 15 fantasy point game. But you can't predict that, just because they've had a few good ones doesn't mean that they're going to have a bad game just because they've had some good games layered on top of good games. You can't really think that way. I like the position, though. We've gotten into Mitchell and Harden and such. Doncic, it's really not a bad spot, but once again, can I get there? I don't think I'm getting there. I don't think especially if Dennis Smith Jr. plays, definitely not, but it's going to be tough to get there. He's been great. Nothing against Doncic. I love the kid. He's the clear rookie of the year. And I don't even think his price tag is, all that egregious, especially not on FanDuel where he's 8,200. But I'm going to go elsewhere probably. Mitchell 8,100. Again on FanDuel, Middleton 7,200 is also really nice. Brogdon 61 at shooting guard, not bad. So there are some decent options here, Dan, and I think you can pretty much get different if you want to. I would assume that on FanDuel, Doncic has higher ownership than DraftKings. 8,200. You got to play 2 shooting guards. He's been pretty solid. If Dennis Smith Jr. is out, that should be the case. But yeah, if anywhere, I like him more on FanDuel where you're a little bit more restricted.
Crazy things have happened in the NBA, but Smith currently listed as out with a back. So hopefully that stays the same.
Did they rule him out already?
Yeah, they have. So we have seen, but again, not calling you out specifically, there have been plenty of times in the NBA where someone has been listed out, then questionable, then doubtful, then playing. So keep that in mind. So just keep an eye on it. Obviously, up to lineup lock. I will make the reiteration I always do. NBA is not a game to play and set a lineup at noon and walk away from it. You need to be around for that time between lineup lock and from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at lineup lock. Of course, East Coast times, East Coast bias there from me. But you do need to be present to make sure your players haven't been late scratched or some sort of lineup juggling going on. Small forward up next. We do have Giannis, and he does have a Q tag. He's probable, has a quad soreness and left hip bruise. Something to monitor. Same thing. Just making sure that he is not of any issue. The big thing of small forward is we do have a lot of shooting guards eligible, and you do have some of the point guards move over as well, where you have Simmons and Doncic, who are facilitators of sorts at 89 and 8,400. Jimmy Butler continues to stand out here. I want to get Dave's take momentarily on Butler and potential upside here for what could be a great matchup. What is a great matchup, as already described, against the Atlanta Hawks. You have Kawhi here at 9,700. And I know the upside's there for Kawhi, Dave, but it's a situation where I just never trust that he's going to get that upside for me. So I deal with some sort of concern here that Kawhi at 9,700 too overpriced. You mentioned Ben Simmons already at 8,900. We talked to Andrew Wiggins a bit there at shooting guard. And then we get into the Ingles. Jeremy Lamb is down here at 5,600 for Charlotte against Portland. We continue on to look at a Kevin Knox at 5,400. Knox is the sort of guy that has a definite floor. It's a floor that's been established in the teens on DraftKings. But when you look at that box score and you see a continual shot progression that's in double digits, you have to like that. But Dave, as we look at small forward and we try to piece it all together, you already mentioned Ben Simmons. What's your take on Jimmy Butler here? What's your take on where Butler stands and at 76 on DK? Is there a significant upside for him here for tournament lineups, or are you still concerned that it's pretty much capped with the big three there, Embiid, Simmons, and Jimmy Butler?
Dude, let me tell you something. This is not my night. Not my night. Power flashed. We got like a wild windstorm going on outside with rain and everything, and power went out. Boom, gone. My apologies. We're back now. Not too bad. That could have been a whole lot worse.
It could have been, and I talked about small forwards, so there's that. But I do.
You know what the worst is?
That small forward's terrible.
Yeah, of course. But you know this much. If when we used to do serious shows remotely,
Yep.
and you would lose your power, or your internet would just go out, or something like out of your control. That's a little bit different than popping back onto a podcast.
It is very different. A brief note here. There were two different shows when Dave and I were at FI right before I left. Well, this was completely in my control, where I fell asleep right before.
Sure did.
It was when we had just moved, and I was still dealing with my now middle child not sleeping. And I sat down on the couch with the full intention of, I'm just going to sit on the couch. I'm going to watch some TV. I pass out. I wake up one time at 11:58, and I'm able to log in time for the start of the show. Another time, I started at like 12:05. No, it wasn't. Was it that late?
Yeah, there was one that went past a half hour, no doubt. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. That's bad. No wonder I don't have a full-time job in this world. Anyway, small forward. I do want to get your take here on Butler. Like, he's a guy. Yeah, well, it's Butler and Kawhi for me are the guys who I know the upside's there. I know the ceiling is there that they could have gigantic nights, and depending on the matchup. But price point wise, Kawhi is too expensive for me, and Butler just feels like a situation where I just don't see the upside right now for him to have a gigantic night.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, he's had a decent amount of 40-plus fantasy point games with Embiid in the lineup, but the problem is, once again, come back to, what comparatively speaking, or relative to the rest of the field, similarly priced guys, are they in a spot that you really like? And the answer is no. Like Jimmy Butler sub 7K, like 67, 68 in this spot, I would definitely have some love for. But no, we talked about too many guys below him and above him, or right around the same price, that are just in better spots. So I think I'll fade that. Otto Porter, the minutes, the injury, potential injury, all of that had me pretty shook. I got the fade right the first day, and then I got the fade wrong the second day. Not that 36 kills you at 6K, which is what he was at. Yeah, it really doesn't. But Brooks did give him 33 minutes here. He got up 15 shots, shot 8 for 15. The best we've seen him play, just in terms of efficiency, in a little while. He finally looked comfortable, and he got 33 minutes up. So 23 points, 36 fantasy points. His price has come down $200 on DraftKings. He's 5,800. I don't mind this spot at all for him. 61 on FanDuel is fine as well. I don't love him, but I do think that it's a pretty decent value, especially right now. We do the show early. We don't know what the value is going to look like.
Right.
So we're just basically, doing what we can to find the guys right now that can give you some of that, a little bit of flexibility. Trevor Ariza, he's definitely come back down to earth, no question. But I think the minutes come back up here. There's no reason they shouldn't. He's gotten some time off in some recent blowouts. I'd put him at 37 minutes again against Milwaukee. And if he's going to produce, it's going to be 3-point shooting. He is 0 for 15 from 3 over his last 3 games. So maybe Scott Brooks is just fed up with it. Definitely the case. I don't know. But he's there if you need him. I prefer Porter, though. I also prefer Joe Ingles. So I prefer Ingles and Porter over Ariza, which will make it tough to get to him to begin with. And then, if you really if you are somebody that does not like yourself,
for anyone who doesn't like themselves, comment on the YouTube stream here and let us know who you are.
Yes, exactly. If you just say, you know what, I can't stand being happy. It's a terrible, terrible feeling. Then I would say,
I'm waiting.
Yes, the masochist play of the day.
Ooh, I like it.
You like it? Royce O'Neal. I mean, the guy's just absolutely putrid, but he's probably going to get decent run here. I don't see how he can't. They're down so many damn players.
Right.
They played 18 minutes last game. That was with Neto playing 31. I think he probably gets up to 28, 29, maybe 30 minutes. It's ugly, but he's dirt cheap. He's almost minimum salary, and it's a real up-tempo matchup here. So you could do worse, but you could definitely do better.
I will reiterate the Otto Porter. When you see somebody who has coming back from injury, minutes increase, seemingly getting the rust off, and the price decrease, those are all sort of pieces of a formula for exceeding that value. And again, not every single time that can happen, but those are the sort of things you want to pinpoint as maybe getting some upside out of a price point that should be exploited as he's coming back from injury. Let's move to power forward next. We do have Giannis here. You get KD at 9.8, Kawhi again 9,700, just too expensive for me. I know there's upside here. I know it's Brooklyn. I don't go that high for Kawhi Leonard. Sabonis at 7,500. I haven't seen any news on Miles Turner. Is he in fact out? He's questionable, I think. He's listed as questionable for Friday.
Still questionable.
So Sabonis here is up to a higher price point of 7,500. Siakam's up to 6,700. I don't know if there's a better name for me to say right now than Pascal Siakam. It's a good one. DeMarcus Cousins could be back soon, not yet back, but when he is, DK has him listed as a power forward / center for the Golden State Warriors, something to keep in mind. Markkanen's at 5,900 now on DK. Otto Porter Jr. is power forward eligible. You get Noah Vonleh at 58, and we move down from there. Doesn't seem like we're going to get much here from the power forward position, but what do you got?
Yeah, it's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. So we'll start at the top. So with one guy that stands out right away is got to be John Collins, only because he's been just really, really impressive. And the matchup it's tough because from a rebounding standpoint, he could have some difficulties here, but I don't think he's going to have that difficult of a time scoring. I mean, if this game is close enough, I think Collins at this price is a decent play, but we've got to talk about Sabonis too. With Turner out, he's been, okay. I guess last game, the blowout didn't help, right? He had 36 and 27. So if you're looking at that, so that's 1.1 fantasy points per minute. If you gave him like 32 minutes there, you're looking at around 42, 44 fantasy points, around 32, 34 minutes. And that's really not bad. I mean, we'd have been all right with that, but the blowout hurt. I'd like to see him shoot more, but this is a really good matchup. And I think you get a strong game from Sabonis here if Miles Turner does in fact remain out. Plus, Sabonis is not, he hasn't seen his price tag reflect the Miles Turner situation yet. Same with FanDuel, where he's only 7,700. Actually, the most expensive power forward is John Collins at 83. So it's not, the position is not loaded here. Kyle Kuzma faced a Jazz defense that is definitely improved recently, but he's just shooting so much when he's healthy, of course, with LeBron out. And you saw 44 field goal attempts over his last 2 games. I think Kuzma is actually a decent pivot away from a few guys that will likely be pretty popular. I'm not going to have a ton of him, but I will look to get some in there because Brooklyn or Utah, good defense, but hey, when you're getting up that many shots, sometimes it doesn't matter. You have to keep in mind it's a significant pace down spot for Kuzma, and that hurts him. But I'm not totally opposed to him at a low 7K price point. The position you said it's not that deep. No, it's not great, but Lauri Markkanen, if that game doesn't blow out, Lauri Markkanen is going to play upwards of 35 minutes, and I like his ceiling here. 5,900 on DraftKings to me is a very, very affordable spot given the amount of playing time he's been seeing lately. And sure, he's seen usage come down a bit with Dunn and Levine both healthy, but he's definitely still seeing enough. It's not like you're getting 7 shots a game. You're still getting a decent amount of volume, and he's rebounding well. So I think it's a solid play there. Jay Crowder, 4,400, nice pace up spot. You could see him filling in some additional minutes at the 3 while they shift down to make up for the lack of point guards. And then who's the other one I had here? Oh, I did have one more. Risky play. Not a high volume guy, but some nights when he's on, he's just on. Serge Ibaka against Brooklyn. You're going to be soaking up 30 plus minutes at center. There's always the risk of a blowout, but isn't that the case with so many of these games? Like this one, Houston, Cleveland, Utah, Lakers, Warriors, Chicago. There's a lot of blowout risk. Pacers, Knicks. It's everywhere. So I'm not going to base the slate on how games could blow out. And Brooklyn's just been so dreadful at defending opposing centers this season that if Ibaka gets you 30 plus minutes, this could be a really, really solid outing for him at $6,200 on DraftKings.
As we transition a bit here to center, a question about power forward / centers. You have Kevin Love obviously out for Cleveland. He may be out past the All-Star break at this point. Larry Nance Jr. announced out for 2 to 4 weeks. I would like to know, are you anti-Zizic or pro-Zizic here?
I like it. Oh, God. That was something right there.
I'm very proud of that one.
Something.
What do we got at center?
Yeah, probably not going Zizic. So if Thompson was out, I would have had a lot of him, no question. He played 20 minutes in that game. I wish Popcorn Machine would free up these game flows because they don't have the past couple days.
I was gonna say, it's not just me, right? It's the 8th is the last.
They just don't update. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of sucks, but what are you gonna do? No,
I'm gonna complain about it on the podcast. Is what
there
I'm
you
gonna
go.
do.
I was waiting on Thompson being out. Now I'm glad he wasn't because I had Ed Davis everywhere, and that would have meant that I would have pulled some Ed Davis for some Zizic. So I'm glad that was not the case because Davis had a great game, but Zizic would definitely. I'd put him probably 26 minutes if Thompson was out, but that's not the case. Thompson played, and now I think you're probably looking at 17 minutes or so from him, 16 minutes. I don't know how much of that run came in the blowout. I wasn't watching that game, so I can't say. Karl Anthony Towns, though, against Dallas, I have no problem continuing to run him out. I think he's been very solid. I actually prefer him over Embiid here. Am I worried that Embiid's going to get stopped, by Lloyd Pierce doubling him? No, but I think his life could be made a little bit more difficult, and it'll open things up for guys like Ben Simmons. It's not to say I don't like Embiid, but I will take the savings on Towns here. I'm perfectly okay with that. Rudy Gobert against the Lakers is in a strong spot himself. And you know what? You may even see a little bit more volume pushed his way. Hopefully get double-digit field goal attempts there. That would be nice. Who else? DeAndre Jordan, man, what a disappointment he's been. Great spot against Phoenix. Got the 32 minutes as we expected and was just a colossal failure. And we've seen that a lot with him lately. It's been rough. I mean, DeAndre Jordan has had, it does not feel like he's had a lot more bad games than he has in previous seasons. I mean, he's always going to have some bad games, but it feels like it's every other game or 2 or 3 in a row. It's been tough.
I think Jordan is just, and he's not physically old, meaning years. I just think he's lost his legs. You look at his numbers and it just doesn't seem like it's there anymore. And he played, what you said, 32 minutes. He shot 4 of 8. He shot 4 of 8. He had 11.7 rebounds, 2 blocks and assists. It's fine, but for what you'd expect from a DeAndre Jordan, if I need his price point to drop below 6, like he's up at 7,300 on this slate, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me for his production and this matchup. Any cheap guys here worthwhile from a center position? You do have the likes of a JaVale McGee against Utah at 5,100. Talking price points, Brook Lopez against Washington is at 4,900. He's been playing back-to-back 30-plus minutes. Anybody that you throw out there from a very cheap perspective?
No, pretty much no. There's nobody that stands out as just a great discounted play that you're going to want to get or going to want to get into the majority of your lineups. There's nobody there. Bobby Portis is always interesting to me, though, just because when you talk about per minute producers, he can rack up fantasy points, as quick as anybody when he's out there, right? A great per minute guy, very efficient against Golden State. I actually kind of like him, and it might be a win-win if this game blows out. He still gets blowout run, and if it doesn't, you could still see Portis get up to like 23 minutes, which at that price would not be the worst thing. I'd actually be intrigued to to see what he can do in this spot. So I'll have a little bit of him. It's a risky, no question, but the question is really where else are you going to go here, right? So Jake Layman got the start over the injured Mo Harkless last time, played 17 minutes, did absolutely nothing. But in that same game, we saw Zach Collins get 26 minutes, which was nice to see. He had a solid game. He might not be the worst option here. Again, I'd really like to look and see what the rotations looked like, who was playing where, and hopefully I'll have that for the deep dive for Friday morning, Friday afternoon. But it's definitely limiting my ability to look a little bit deeper into some of these guys and see what we should expect for rotations, because Mo Harkless is out, and what would happen if this guy or this guy is out. Not having those games makes it kind of tough for sure.
I will continue to pour one out for Markieff Morris out with his transient cervical neuropraxia.
Sounds painful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a neck thing. And surprisingly, his brother got into a bench fight with Jaylen Brown on Thursday night. So good to see the Morris brothers.
Not surprised.
Yeah, doing their thing. It's what they do. It's what they do. But yeah, Jimmy Butler is the one who's called a cancer on teams. But the Morris brothers just fight their teammates. That's fine. Nonetheless, any final thoughts here on the overall slate before we get to our final question of the show?
I think that'll do it for now. Just going to do some digging into these game flows. It's a lot of it's going to come down to predicting the right rotations here. That we've had enough guys injured, we have enough guys out, enough guys questionable, that the landscape of this entire slate is going to change throughout the day, especially by mid-afternoon. Just got to know where to pivot when those changes happen.
All right, 10K plus guys. We have Karl Anthony Towns at 10-2. LeBron's out. Obviously, you then have Embiid at 11, Giannis at 11-3, and James Harden at 12-5. Obviously, we do take price into consideration a bit here, but if you're building one lineup for DFS around one of these single players, who would it be?
Yeah, it's still going to be Harden. It's still going to be Harden. I really do like this spot for Giannis, no question. Against Washington, it's a really appealing matchup, but still James Harden. And hey, even in blowouts, Harden's getting like 35 minutes. And if they do blow Cleveland out, if they blow their doors off by halftime and he only plays 3 quarters, who's going to be the reason that happens?
Right.
James Harden.
Right, absolutely. Can't see a way forward that is not Harden leading that blowout. So Dave's made a point, and I think it's the right point, that it's so hard to predict blowouts. And when we get into that mode, you're usually trying to ignore the stars, and the stars are the ones who cause the blowouts typically. Yes, there are the one-offs when that doesn't happen, but always worthwhile to find every single play. Don't try to discard a game just because of a spread over there in Vegas. Sometimes Vegas gets it wrong, and so that is where you can really make a profit. Our good buddy Jay Walker in NFL was always very, very adamant about that. Find the games you think Vegas got wrong and exploit those. Specifically talking about NFL, but I think it plays here in NBA as well. So with that said, find Dave over on Twitter, Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. Find him on Sirius XM, Sirius 210, XM 87, Saturdays and Sundays. Find me at Dan Strafford on Twitter. Find me on FNTSY, Saturday mornings from 8 to 10 a.m. if you so choose. Find Osmo, Osmo_com. You get Adam and Emac Saturday morning here on none other than your DFS Early Bird.